So this is a late 2013 21-inch iMac, and today, with a budget of just $30, we are going to restore this thing to be a really, really good machine. Okay, so for this restoration video, I'm going to walk you guys through everything that it takes to fix this guy up, and frankly, it's not a lot. This is the base model, late 2013 iMac 21.5 inch, and it comes with a 2.7 gigahertz quad-core i5, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and a 1 terabyte 5400 RPM hard drive. Now, that hard drive is the sticking point with these machines. They're pretty powerful. I mean, the quad-core i5 isn't great, but it's more than enough for basic tasks, and 8 gigabytes of 1600 megahertz DDR3 is really no problem at all. However, those 1 terabyte 5400 RPM drives are absolutely abysmal. It takes about 25 minutes to turn this machine on. So I got this from a family member who wanted to get rid of this iMac because it was just too slow. And frankly, I can see what they mean. This desktop was completely covered in clutter, and just to move it into a folder so that I didn't reveal any personal information, just to move the documents into a folder took a solid 15 minutes. Now, as I suspected when I got this machine, the hard drive is failing. I opened up Drive DX and this hard drive is not doing so hot. It's pretty much at full capacity and has been running very hard for the past 6 years, so it doesn't surprise me that the hard drive is dead. So here's the thing that trips people up about these slightly older iMacs, and the reason why you can find these things for pretty cheap. So basically, these things are completely sealed. There's no screws to get into it, so people aren't really operating in the state of mind that they can upgrade components. And what that means is that oftentimes, when the computer gets slow, people just think, well, the computer is getting old, it's getting slow, I'm gonna replace it. Oftentimes without knowing that the hard drive is really the only thing that's holding them back. This is a perfectly good computer. It's just being held back by that absolutely abysmal, slow, failing hard drive. And because you can't just unscrew this thing and put an SSD in it like you could with a unibody MacBook Pro, people don't really make the connection that they can fix this problem and will often just sell the computer. But that's not what we're gonna do today. What we're gonna do today is upgrade the hard drive. And as daunting as it seems, considering that there's no exterior screw that I can take off, we basically have to cut through the display, it's really not that tricky a task. So basically all you need to do is get something like this. I got this off of Amazon for like $6 or $8. These are basically adhesive strips. So we're gonna cut off the display, and then when we're ready to put the machine back together, we just gotta use these strips to hold it all together. So it is unfortunate because you can't just whip out a screwdriver like you could with a MacBook. You do need to order one of these before you actually start opening the device, or you're not going to be able to reattach the screen. This particular kit, which I'll have linked in the description below, came with one of these tools. This is basically a little pizza cutter thing, and you can use it to open up the display without damaging any of the interior components. Now, there's not a huge amount of interior stuff that you can damage, so don't worry a whole lot about it as long as you're being careful and you're not really jamming stuff into the device. But these little pizza cutters are useful because they are designed and shaped such that they will only cut through the adhesive and not mess up with like the antennas and stuff like that. Alright, so I brought out one of my little iFixit picks here, which is helpful for getting sort of under the display around the corner here. I'm just gonna rock it a little bit. Alright, now that we're in here, I'll pull out my pizza cutter, insert it over here, and I'm just gonna kind of make my way along the edge of the display. Now you can kind of hear, I don't know if this is going to pick up on camera, but you can hear it cutting through the adhesive. So that is exactly what we want. Alright, so while I'm working through this display, I want to talk a little bit about today's video sponsor, Dashlane. I've been using Dashlane for about a month since they reached out to me to sponsor a video, and I have to say, it's really great. I've always sort of used iCloud to manage all of my passwords, and frankly, iCloud it's useful, it's free, but it doesn't really do everything that I want it to do. Dashlane allows you to do a lot more. You've got unlimited password storage on unlimited devices. It comes with a VPN. It comes with password generation, autofill for a lot more than just passwords. It's got credit cards, passports, photo ID, encrypted document storage. It's like a crazy amount of features that you get for just $5 a month, it's really definitely worth looking into. So I've got a coupon code that you can use if you head over to the description, go to dashlane.com/Miyani, and that's gonna get you 10% off of Dashlane Premium, which comes with all of those features. So definitely make sure you go check that out. It's worth it. $5 a month to get a VPN and all of that encryption and document storage. It's definitely worth it. Go check that out. So now it looks like we have mostly gotten through the adhesive on the display. Oh, see that? Now we're getting somewhere. Aha! There it is, we are in. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up the display and you'll see we've got these two ribbon cables that we have to deal with before we can get in there. So I'm gonna use a spudger on the top one, and then there's just a little tab which I gotta pull up, and then this cable will pull out. And at this point, there's a little bit of adhesive left on the bottom edge here, so I can just run a spudger through that really quickly to disconnect it from the rest of the iMac. Now, one of the other things that you can see when we're in here is just how dusty this is, because of course, there's no way to clean the dust out. You can only do it once you take the display off. So now is a great time to try and get some of the dust out of this fan. You can see it's just absolutely falling out of this fan. Now I've got this little brush. A lot of people ask me where I get this brush. I really don't even remember. You can use something like a paintbrush. Any sort of a fine haired brush will do the trick. It's super dusty in this machine. So now that we've got the entire thing cleaned, let's go ahead and take out these hard drive screws. Now these are just the normal T10 screw bit, which is in my iFixit toolkit, so nice and easy. Basically, we want to remember the order that these go in because they're not all the same length. So make sure you keep track of which screws came from where when you do this. And just like that, this is now completely free to roam. We can actually disconnect the SATA cable over there, and there we go. Now basically, we're gonna wanna keep these sort of rubber stoppers that kind of insulate the hard drive, so I'm gonna peel those off and we're gonna reuse these on our solid state drive. Okay, so now I've put them on the new SSD. This is just like a super cheap, got it at Micro Center for like $28. You can get a 240 gig, similar capacity to these for around that much money. And I'm basically just going to put this thing back in the computer. So that's really all it takes to upgrade the hard drive and clean out the interior, but we do have one thing left to do before we put the display on. Now we cut through the adhesive strips, but they're still here and they're still really gross. So we need to remove these and then replace them before we can reattach the display assembly. Now fortunately, you can pretty much just grab a corner and peel them right off. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that all around the display. Alright, so once I've got those off of the iMac, and by the way, you'll need to do that on the display as well, we're going to use our strips that I got off of Amazon and put those on so that we can attach the new display. Now when we take these out, you'll notice that there's a bunch of different strips with different tags and names, and basically each one of these is going to go on a different part of the iMac. So for example, this one looks like it lines up right over here. Now you'll also notice there are small holes on either end of these strips, and those are so that you can make sure that everything lines up properly and you don't get any weird bubbles. Basically, you put the tip of a pencil or a spudger in there, and that kind of allows you to lock it in place so you can get the correct placement. Okay, so now that the machine is all set, let's turn it on, make sure that it works. It's really, oh, I didn't plug it in. Okay, now that it's plugged in, let's see if it works. Oh, and what do you know? Okay, so I installed macOS before I put the SSD in because I just want to turn it right on and make sure that everything is working fine. But we do still have a few things to do. You can probably see that the display is a little bit dirty. So we're gonna give this machine and also the keyboard and mouse that came with it a good cleaning because it's very, very dirty. Alright, and as you can see, everything is working fine. It's already a lot snappier. Like, on the old hard drive, it would even take a couple of minutes to pull up the About This Mac window. So we've definitely made some improvements. So let's shut this thing down and give it a good clean. Alright, so now that this machine is all cleaned up, we have, for just $30, a really nice, relatively powerful iMac that would be more than fine for watching movies, browsing the internet, even some 1080p video editing. These things have pretty decent Iris Pro graphics, which are not horrible. They've got quad-core processors, 8 gigs of RAM, and now solid-state storage. This is a very solid machine. So if you can find one of these that's been thrown in like e-waste, or maybe they're selling for cheap on eBay, it does not take a lot to really get these things up and running in a way that is going to be very satisfactory. Now, one thing I didn't do in this video was upgrade the RAM, and while you can do that, it does require you to pull the logic board because it's on the other side. There's no RAM hatch like you'll find on a 27-inch iMac, which makes that very easy, but you can upgrade the RAM. Now, this particular machine is the base model, and because it's the base model, it has a soldered-on processor, but other higher tier versions of the 21-inch iMac, including the current ones, do actually have socketed processors, so you can go from an i5 to an i7 on some of those machines. Now, while we're on the subject of upgrades and compatibility, the method that I just showed you today, even though I showed you on a late 2013 iMac, pretty much any 21-inch iMac since the 2012 redesign with the tapered edges, all of the 4K ones up until even the current 2019 ones, this same pretty much identical method will work. You just get the strips, they use standard drives, and you're good to go. So this is a great way to breathe new life into an old iMac, or even to buy a new iMac and upgrade to a solid-state drive without breaking the bank by paying Apple's upgrade prices. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed. As usual, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please consider joining my subreddit if you have any questions, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter @LukeMiani. And with that, I will see you all in the next video.